Welcome to another episode of Eagle News International, Australia, Oceania. I'm Samantha DeMillo, bringing you stories from Australia, New Zealand, and Papua New Guinea. Here are the headlines. Australia's Victorian government seeks to extend state of emergency for another 12 months. Papua New Guinea implements curfew to help stop coronavirus spread. Online study during the pandemic impacts tertiary students in Australia. Filipino migrant workers help rebuild New Zealand's economy amidst COVID-19 pandemic. Springtime gardening ideas for the home. And sceneries and sites to visit in Australia's capital city, Canberra. COVID-19 continued to affect many lives across the globe, including people from the Australia-Oceania region. The number of cases continues to rise despite the restrictions put in place to combat the spread of coronavirus. The Australian state of Victoria has been in a state of emergency since March, which enforces public health and COVID-safe rules such as mandatory face masks and social distancing. The Victorian state government are looking into extending the state of emergency for another 12 months. Eagle News correspondent Dwight Baloloi from Melbourne has more of this story. Dwight?
The Victorian government is seeking to extend the state of emergency for another 12 months. Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews stated that these changes would be essential in ensuring the public health is safe and thoroughly managed legally. A new legislation is currently in discussion to extend the state of emergency in Victoria for up to 12 months. According to the Public Health and Wellbeing Act 2008, the maximum period of state of emergency can be declared for 6 months, which Victoria's current state of emergency is due to end on September 13. The state of emergency for Victoria was first declared on March 16 and was then extended again on August 16. The government's decision for this was to reduce the risk that endangers the public health by restricting movements, detaining people, and preventing entry to premises to protect the public. In a post made by the Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews, he wrote that the extension of the state of emergency is to ensure that we can legally make the changes our health experts need to keep us safe. Mr. Andrews also said that these changes are about saving lives and keeping Victorians safe. This extension, however, does not entail that the current lockdown restrictions will also be extended during this time. The Premier has emphasized that this new legislation will not affect how long the current lockdown will last, nor will it increase the restrictions we face. A bill is set to go before the Parliament with the intention of amending the Act, enabling the state of emergency to be extended for another 12 months, therefore enabling it to be in place for a total of 18 months. The new legislation will also ensure that public health directions can still be enforced well after the state of emergency ends if necessary. The government's fight to control the virus still continues, as the state faces the ongoing effects of COVID-19. Many Victorians have suffered the repercussions brought by this virus due to the lockdown restrictions in place. Daniel Andrews says that having a legal framework which is to extend the state of emergency is essential to protect what we've already achieved, in hopes that one day Victoria will return back to normal. Reporting from Melbourne, Australia, this is Dwight Albert Baloloi, and we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Dwight, for the updates. Although places just like Victoria in Australia are prolonging their established restrictions, Papua New Guinea, on the other hand, is introducing new rules for the public. In order to stop the spread of coronavirus in the community, a curfew has been implemented. Let's hear more about this story from our Port Moresby correspondent, Echo Hortaleza Quinola. Echo?
Because of the rapid increase of COVID-19 cases, the National Capital District implemented a curfew from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. Essential workers were issued curfew passes to travel during these curfew hours. The National Pandemic Response and Police Commissioner David Manning strictly implemented that a curfew within the National Capital District should be observed and followed. This will be enforced and will continue under the new measures. Groceries, gasoline stations, restaurants, and shopping malls will be closed earlier than the usual trading hours. The National Pandemic Response believes that normal, good, and law-abiding citizens are usually at home during those curfew hours, though they get criticisms because the motorists have different feelings toward this announcement. Be it pleasant or violent reactions, authorities are solid and presently well fixed in their conviction that curfew is one of the preventive measures to battle the rapid growing numbers of COVID-19 cases. Stopping people in moving from place to place means stopping the virus from spreading. This is a simple way of preventing COVID-19. The National Control Center also strongly encouraged all services providers to continue with the no mask, no service protocol. In this way, they do not just do business, but they are also protecting their customers, staff, and families from our public enemy, the COVID-19.
With COVID-19 and all that, our hospitals, we need to have our doctors and our nurses, we have to think about them as well. And we have to be considerate and allow them, give them the space to focus on the COVID-19 and also other diseases and accidents and all that. They are preventable. And if we can prevent accidents and all that, then we help our doctors and nurses. And I think curfew is a good way to prevent all those.
Reporting from Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, Echo Hortaleza Quinola, we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Echo. The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted our lives in various ways. This can pose challenges to our daily routine. Now, tertiary students in Australia have shifted to online learning, which has impacted them greatly as they adjust to the new normal. Charm Elia, our correspondent from Sydney, has more details. Charm?
As we know, COVID-19 is still ongoing. It has continued to negatively impact many from their normal day-to-day activities. Specifically, it has widely impacted those who are currently studying in their higher education studies, as they have had to swiftly adapt to online studying, thus not receiving the full university or college experience as they were guaranteed for. Although online classes are readily available to students for some courses and have continuously been introduced, it has never been compulsory for on-campus learning. This is due to the disadvantage it may pose to some students who may not be comfortable with online learning. However, due to COVID-19, students have now had to adapt to a different learning environment, from sitting in an actual classroom to being in the comfort of their own homes. This whole virtual experience still allows for students to interact with one another, though disadvantages are still at hand by not having the physical face-to-face contact with teachers and the inevitable distractions that may arise from being in the comfort of one's home. It also refrains students from being able to physically socialize and communicate with their classmates, especially in group and team assignments.
I coped with online studying by managing my time a lot better and making a timetable, because otherwise I was just not doing anything. I had to keep to a strict schedule. If I had to rearrange it, I actually had to move it up or down. I couldn't just move it to the next day.
It was hard because my internet wasn't connecting to the classes or like with the teachers, so it was very hard to communicate, and emailing them would take them forever to reply, so I'd have a hard time understanding something, so I'd leave it till last minute and then I'd forget about it, so yeah, it was really hard.
At present, the restrictions have now eased, and it is only mandatory for some students who are mainly in the fields of science to attend their face-to-face classes to complete practicals or hands-on work. Universities have rapidly adapted to these cases by implementing the social distancing rules and adding sanitary areas in order to follow government regulations and help prevent the spread of COVID-19. Through this, students are able to continue their learning. However, challenges have arisen because of this new experience.
At the start, it was a bit challenging. It's much easier being motivated to do your work when you're physically present in the environment, especially when your professors and mentors are just a few feet away from you. But with online studies, it's a lot to do with personal motivation. So I struggled with that at the start, but what helped me was writing weekly plans and scoping out my week. So this helped me adjust my priorities and be able to cope with it faster.
The rapid change in learning for higher education students have impacted many, with students having to swiftly adapt to this new norm of online studying despite the complications and limited resources provided. As long as COVID-19 is still in effect, these students will need to continue their studies in this new learning experience as they await for the day they arrive back on campus. Reporting from Sydney, Australia, Charm Alaya, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
Thank you, Charm. After the break, we'll hear more uplifting stories in light of COVID-19, such as how Filipino migrant workers in New Zealand have helped rebuild the country's economy. Also, be inspired as we present gardening ideas to stay busy while in quarantine. We will also showcase beautiful sceneries from Australia's capital city, Canberra. All these after the break. Stay tuned. Eagle News International continues after this.
The search for the best continues. Tagi sa Nagaling Part 2 is now accepting audition entries. If you are 21 to 59 years old and have what it takes to be the next Tagi sa Nagaling Grand Winner as a solo performer, duet, trio, band, or grouped act, submit your audition entries now. Just follow these guidelines. To submit audition entries for the singing category, contact Nikki at 0977-651-9504. This is your chance to be Tagisan ng Galing's grand winner and win 2 million pesos. For more details and updates, visit and like the Tagisan ng Galing Facebook page. What are you waiting for? Join now!
The New Era University, in its 45th year of excellence, discipline, and service to humanity, will offer online education all levels beginning this first semester academic year 2020 to 2021 through the NEU Virtual Learning Environment, or NEU VLE. New Era University offers a complete basic education cycle from kindergarten up to senior high school, offering all strands. NEU has 18 colleges, and 2 graduate schools. It also offers ALS and ETF. Best of all, NEU has the most affordable tuition fees among private universities in the Philippines. NEU is at Quezon City, the city of San Fernando, Pampanga, General Santos City, South Cotabato, Lipa City, Batangas, and Pinugay, Baras, Rizal.
New Era University is under the stewardship of Dr. Dilo L. Rosas.
What are you waiting for? Be part of the new normal. Enroll now. Classes start on October 5, 2020.
Welcome back. I'm Samantha DeMillo, and you're watching Eagle News International, Oceania. The outbreak of coronavirus has economic consequences on a massive scale, including countries in the Oceania region. Gearing towards being future-proof, New Zealand is trying to reclaim economic security with the help of Filipino migrant workers in rebuilding the country's economy. Our correspondent from Wellington City, Greg Bessa, has the story. Greg?
It may be remembered that thousands of Filipino workers work in Christchurch when the city started its reconstruction efforts after it was struck by a devastating earthquake in February 2011. Now, as the government is implementing multi-million-dollar initiatives, including small and big infrastructure projects aimed at rebuilding the New Zealand economy, as it continues to suffer from severe disruptions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Filipino migrant workers, some of whom were employed during the Christchurch reconstruction, are ready and willing to work side by side with their Kiwi counterparts for the country's economic recovery. The Philippine Embassy and the Philippine Overseas Labor Office have been reaching out to Filipino migrant workers across New Zealand to know firsthand the working conditions and mental well-being as the COVID-19 crisis in the country adversely affects thousands of business establishments, resulting to a significant number of job losses. In a meeting held at the Polo office in Wellington City, Philippine Ambassador to New Zealand, His Excellency Jesus Domingo, and Labor Attaché Angel Burha Jr. met a group of Filipino migrant workers who are employed at the construction industry. Other than providing information and advice on programs and services the Embassy and Polo could extend to the workers, especially those who were laid off from their jobs, the Philippine Ambassador and the Labor Attaché also distributed food parcels to those in attendance. During this meeting, immigration-related issues and concerns were also discussed by Jun Ranson, Chair of the New Zealand Association for Migration and Investment, and the Managing Director of the Woburn International, a reputable immigration consultancy firm. After answering the queries of the workers and providing them sound advice, she, along with the Philippine Ambassador and Labor Attaché, recognized how valuable the Filipino migrant workers are to the New Zealand economy due to their desirable working attributes and etiquettes and world-class skills.
There are 27 plus thousand work visa holders, Filipino workers in New Zealand today. Even as this country deals with COVID-19 pandemic crisis, but most of these workers still continue to work. If there had been redundancies or job displacements that occurred for Filipino workers in this country, they are far less numerous than other nationalities who are equally migrant workers in New Zealand. And they owe this to the fact that Filipino workers are able to easily vary the conditions of their work visa. They are able to adapt to new work situations, and that's what makes them a prized employees of many employers in New Zealand.
So even before the onset of COVID-19, Filipino workers have been playing a vital part in the New Zealand economy and infrastructure in all sectors. So all the more, as New Zealand and the world recovers from COVID-19, Filipino workers will have a vital role here in New Zealand. There have been many very big infrastructure projects that still need to continue. And for example, the Transmission Gully, we still have the rebuilding of Christchurch and other earlier earthquake-affected areas. Of course, the health and the caring infrastructure, our hospitals, clinics, care homes, other frontliner lines of activity, the shops, our teachers in the schools. So as New Zealand recovers, Filipino workers and Filipino Kiwis will be working side by side with their Kiwis and brothers and sisters on rebuilding and building back better.
Much as the workers were substantially provided with the information and advice they needed most, it was evidently clear that they wanted to stay and work in New Zealand to help rebuilding the economy as the government continues to fight against the resurgence of COVID-19 cases in the country.
Papasalamat sa gobyerno ng New Zealand, sa mga Kiwi na nag-allow sa amin na magtrabaho po dito sa New Zealand. At ninanais po naming makatulong sa ekonomiya ng New Zealand para makabangon sa pamamagitan ng pagtulong. At nangangako po kami na gagawin po namin ang lahat ng aming makakaya.
Mula po sa Filipino community dito sa bansang New Zealand, kami pong mga Pilipino ay nagpapasalamat ng buong puso sa gobyerno ng New Zealand at kami po ay nakahandang tumulong na ang bansang New Zealand ay ma-rebuild namin ang kanilang ekonomiya.
Other than in the construction industry, Filipino migrant workers are also providing the needed manpower in vital industries of the New Zealand economy, such as dairy farming, telecommunication, apiculture, horticulture, health, and hospitality. From Eagle News New Zealand Bureau, this is Greg Bessa. We live in interesting times.
Thanks for that, Greg. It's reassuring to learn New Zealand's pathway to economic recovery despite the surge of coronavirus. This time, for a more uplifting story, we have a carer from Perth, Western Australia, who found gardening to be one positive outlet during the stay-at-home restrictions. In times of elevated anxiety and stress, having a hobby might help to stay optimistic. Let's be inspired as our correspondent Mia Makapagal shares their story. Mia?
Almost everywhere, stay-at-home restrictions are implemented. Many people now have a bit more time and to avoid boredom, spend it on their existing hobbies, while others are keen to start a newfound passion. Whichever category you fall into, you'll definitely score some points from a gardening enthusiast. Candy Soriano from Perth, Western Australia.
The list of advantages of gardening is endless. Many say that it's therapeutic and can reduce stress. Seeing your plants thriving and your efforts paying off is a very rewarding experience. People who have personal gardens also benefit from actually using the products they get, whether they're flowers, herbs, fruits, or even vegetables. A huge plot of land isn't necessary in order to enjoy some greenery at home, as there are many varieties of plants which can also be cultivated indoors.
If this hobby is for you, we hope that seeing our successful gardeners' pots and plants inspired you to start or continue your green journey. From Brisbane, Australia, this is Mia Makapagal, and we live in interesting times.
We now go to the capital city of Australia, Canberra, where our correspondent Ronzel Castro walks us through some of the beautiful sceneries and sights that the city has to offer. Get us all on board your virtual tour, Ronzel.
Canberra, the nation's capital, also known as the bush capital of Australia, and the home region of the original land custodians, the Ngunnawal. Despite the current situation with the COVID-19 pandemic and past bushfire incidents, the capital is still a wonderful place all throughout this year, filled with beautiful sights and sceneries that families and guests can visit in this region. As one of the many destinations here in the ACT, the Australian National Botanic Gardens is one you must never miss. Located at the foot of Black Mountain and Tesla Tower, the Botanic Gardens maintain the scientific collection of native plants from all around Australia, which support a living collection of approximately 83,000 individual plants arranged in 40-hectare themed sections such as taxonomic, ecological and geographic, and conservation. Guests can walk side by side nature with fun-filled educational activities that fulfills the goals of inspiring, informing and connecting the Australian people with its native fauna. The Botanic Gardens are open daily from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. with current implementations of restrictions for visitors' safety. Across from the Botanic Gardens, approximately 5.6 kilometers away, you can find the National Arboretum, a living mosaic of forests and gardens which offer breathtaking views and unique experiences. The Arboretum holds over 44,000 rare and endangered trees across its 250-hectare site, truly of which is a sight to behold. The Arboretum is open to the public every day from 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., while other amenities such as the Village Center opens around 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Around 48.4 kilometers away from the city lies the beautiful lush Corin Forest, located within the Tiddenbilla Reserve. During winter, the lush green forests are dotted with a blanket of snow, differing from the usual sceneries seen throughout summer and spring. Wintertime in Corin is one to behold for providing Canberrans with not only the winter wonderland snow experience, but as well as a great getaway to frolic and enjoy winter with friends and family despite the current pandemic. This is Ronzo Jan T. Castro, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Ronsel, for bringing us along Australia's beautiful capital city. Thank you all for joining us in this episode of Eagle News International Australia Oceania. We'll be back next time with more stories from our bureaus across Australia, New Zealand, and Papua New Guinea. Visit our websites on eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Follow us on twitter.com/Eagle News and facebook.com/Eagle News. Stay safe, stay strong, and keep safe, everyone. From Sydney, Australia, I'm Samantha DeMillo, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.